I'm busy, you're busy, we're all busy. So how do you learn the language that you've always dreamed of when you never seem to have any time? It might feel like there just aren't enough hours in a day, but I'll show you how you can optimize the time you already have so you can finally learn any language. In this guide, we're going to dive into my 3-step method, which includes practical tips, strategies, and tools that will kickstart and skyrocket your language learning success. With so little time left after a typical busy day to dedicate to language learning, it can be discouraging and even disheartening when trying to figure out how we can inject meaningful language learning time into our day. So let's take a look at how you can learn a language like crazy, even if you have a crazy life. Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm the Intrepid Guide, your guide to language learning for travel, using my 80-20 method. And if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click on the bell notification so you get an alert when I post more videos like this one. Let's consider this powerful proverb by the Chinese Confucian philosopher Zunzi, who wrote in the Teachings of the Ru, "Not having heard something is not as good as having heard it. Having heard it is not as good as having seen it. Having seen it is not as good as knowing it. Knowing it is not as good as putting it into practice." Centuries later, this idea was reinterpreted as, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." The key to making real progress with your language learning is by being actively involved. Being involved means being occupied, engrossed, and interested in what you're doing. So if we are limited by the time in our day, we need to ensure that what little time we do have for language learning, that we use it wisely and make the most of it. We need to be involved. Now let's take a look at the cone of learning. Now this was created by an American educator named Edgar Dale, who further explains this idea of the cone of learning. Now through this, he explains that after the course of 2 weeks, we remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we hear and see, 70% of what we say and write, and 90% of what we actually participate in. So the more you participate, the more you learn and remember in the long run, and the faster your progress will be. So what does this mean for you as a busy language learner? Well, in order to get the most out of the time you do have, you need to focus on language learning methods and strategies that will help you reach your goals sooner. It's not just about finding the time to learn, it's what you do with it. This means focusing on active learning, not passive learning. So what is passive learning? Passive language learning is where you are receiving information that someone else produces. Your brain is just absorbing what it hears and sees without you actively engaging with it. You don't really focus or analyze what's being said. The information just flows over you. But therein lies the problem. For example, if you're just sitting on your couch with a lap covered in popcorn watching your favorite animation in your target language on Disney Plus or Netflix, expecting to absorb the language by osmosis, how much do you think that you're actually going to pick up and retain this language? Unfortunately, the answer is not very much. Sure, you might pick up a few words here and there or a phrase or two, but this won't move the language learning needle. Here are some examples of learning languages passively: putting post-it notes around your house with new words on them, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or internet radio, watching TV shows, movies, documentaries, and YouTube in your target language, revising flashcards, both paper ones or in an app, flicking through apps like Duolingo, Mondly, or Babbel, changing your phone's language settings, or just being in a place where your target language is spoken, but you're not really engaging with the people. So what is active learning? Active learning is the polar opposite of passive learning. Active learning is where you take control of your language learning and actively work to reproduce the language. You're not just expecting that your target language will be improved just through absorption. So while passive language learning feels easy and familiar and you could do it for hours on end, active learning can feel challenging, difficult, and tiring, and it will exhaust you after an hour or so of intense concentration. But this is where the progress is made. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. There is, however, the opportunity to turn passive learning into active learning. So let's revisit the earlier example of passively watching your favorite animation in your target language on Disney Plus, for example, or a series on Netflix. Can you make this activity active? Absolutely. There are countless ways to do it, but here is one way that you can do it. Okay, so you can watch the program in 10 short minute chunks. Watch the first 10 minutes, then watch it a second time, writing down words or phrases that you don't recognize or understand. Then you look up words and write down what they mean. Then you re-watch the segment a third time, paying attention to the new vocabulary. Then you write a summary of what's happened in the show so far using the new vocabulary you've learned. Depending on how much new vocabulary you need to check, this exercise will take you anywhere between 40 to 90 minutes. Now, you don't need to do it all at once, you can spread it out throughout your day. The important thing to note here is that spending 40 to 90 minutes focused on 10 minutes of a show at a time is infinitely more valuable to your learning success than just focusing on the whole movie that goes for like 2 hours. Now, here are some ways that you can learn languages actively. Writing a journal, you can start with as little as 1 or 2 sentences a day. Join a language class and contribute to class discussion and ask clarifying questions. Translate the lyrics of your favourite songs. Book a conversation lesson on italki. And to supplement my own language learning, I personally use italki multiple times every week. And this is where I get one-to-one support and get speaking practice with a qualified teacher or a community tutor. You can start shadowing. This is the process of listening to a recording and simultaneously echo what you hear in order to improve pronunciation and intonation. You can complete a grammar exercise, whether from a workbook or an online course. You can write a summary of a scene of a TV show or ideas from a documentary or a scene from a movie using new language that you've learned in this context. I personally love to use Disney Plus and Netflix for this, as there are so many languages to choose from. And you can check out my video on how to use Netflix for language learning, which I've linked to in the description below. You can prepare a presentation on a topic of your choice and share that with your classmates or your italki instructor. For optimal results, you can teach someone else. You can share what you've learned to see what you've really understood. There's an old Latin proverb by Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger who said, "By teaching, we learn." This is also known as the protege effect, which states that the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. To learn more about how the memory works, just check out my video on memory hacks that will help you to remember new vocabulary faster, and I've linked to that in the description below. Let's compare passive learning and active learning. And if you watch my video on memory hacks, then you'll know that memories are formed most effectively when you force your brain to do something. When you write something down, you actively process information and engage with what you have heard. This makes it far more likely that you'll remember it. On the other hand, by not engaging with this new information, it means that you are far less likely to actually be able to recall it. Active learning is when you undertake the sorts of activities that after 30 minutes or so you feel exhausted. But that's good, it means it's working. And if it's tiring and feels challenging, it's a good sign that you are really pushing yourself. And this is where meaningful learning is really happening. Passive learning, on the other hand, you can do for a long period of time and it's probably fun or enjoyable and you can feel like you can do it all day and it doesn't really feel like work. But that's when you know you're not really challenging yourself or you haven't learned as much as you could have. Think of the brain as a muscle, albeit a very complex one. Now, if you spend 30 minutes doing a grueling workout at the gym, it leaves you feeling tired, but you feel great because you're building muscle and improving your endurance by exertion. You feel a sense of accomplishment. Compare this with going on a gentle stroll for 30 minutes. This isn't going to tire you out. Now, it's good for your general health and well-being, but it's not going to dramatically improve your level of fitness. Does it make you feel the same sense of achievement after an intense workout? Probably not. You need to look at language learning the same way. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Now, this doesn't mean that passive learning isn't valuable at all and is a complete waste of time. Every type of learning practice has some value, but passive learning isn't going to help you reach your language goals when you have limited time. Now, let's take a look at how to fit language learning into your busy day with dead time. Now, we've established that active learning is more valuable than passive learning. The next step is to identify the untapped time in your day where you can inject language learning. Now, you've probably heard of the term dead time. Dead time is when you're doing little to no activity. It's the time we waste every day. For example, your dead time could be 40 minutes that you spend commuting to work every day, or the 15-minute gap between meetings. Most of us let this time slip through our fingers and we waste time flicking through our phones on social media or playing a highly addictive game. But if you choose to, you can master the art of utilizing this dead time. And if you do this, you'll be surprised at the difference it can make to your language skills. Now, dead time can last anywhere between 5 minutes to an hour, so think of the possibilities. Your dead time could also be when you're doing the dishes, cleaning the house, driving, commuting on public transport, waiting in line, grocery shopping, or even taking a bath or doing your makeup. Now, it's in these small pockets of time of your typical busy day that the real opportunity lies. You don't need to change your schedule, move appointments. You just need to add a language learning element to your dead time. The idea is to use these reoccurring time blocks to fit in meaningful and active learning time. That's that word again, meaningful. However, there is one important caveat. Not all dead time is created equal. Some of your dead time will be better suited to passive learning, which, as you know, isn't going to help you reach your goals. This is when your attention is divided, and most likely your hands will be engaged too, and you won't be able to fully participate in the learning. For example, if you listen to a podcast in your target language whilst doing the dishes and you hear a word repeatedly that you don't understand, what are the chances that you're going to stop, take off your gloves, find your dictionary, iPhone, or laptop, and look up this word and then add it to your notebook? Pretty slim, right? Well, this is passive learning. Compare this with listening to the same podcast on the train on your way to work. Your hands are free and you can look up a word, or you can even pause the podcast easily. You can jot down new words in your notebook, flashcard app, or in your Google Docs, and you can look at it later on. Guess what? You've just actively participated in your language learning during your active learning dead time. This idea can be easily summed up with, do what you're doing. Now, what does this mean? It means don't divide your efforts. By not spreading your attention thin, you'll reach your goals sooner. There are countless studies that show that multitasking doesn't work. So if you really want to improve your target language, then you have to give it 100% focus that it needs. Now let's take a look at how to find dead time. Now, to learn during your dead time, you first need to work out where it occurs in your day. Your task now is to find as many active learning dead time opportunities in your day as possible. Now, while some of it is obvious, like commuting to work on a train, a lot of dead time occurs without our notice. Small tasks, routine admin, lengthy processes, managing email, attending meetings, responding to colleagues on Slack or via email. While all these count as work, most of them are hugely unproductive. It's not easy learning a language with a full-time job, but it's definitely doable. And you can check out my video, which I've linked to in the description below, that it will show you how to do just that. Then there are times when we're waiting for things to happen, like boarding a plane, or at the doctor's office, or in a queue at the bank, or at the post office. It doesn't matter if you only have a 10-minute time slot once a day, or 3 times a day, or a half-hour time slot before going to bed at night. Whatever you can manage is what is going to work for you. So don't compare yourself to others. My routine is different from your routine. Everyone's life is different, right? So what works for me won't necessarily work for you. Stay positive and stay focused on what you can manage and what you can stick to. And with time, as your routine changes and if language learning becomes a bigger priority, you can create longer active learning sessions in your day. Remember, small efforts lead to big results. Shoot for progress, not perfection. Now let's take a look at what to do during your dead time. Now that you've identified when dead time occurs, the next step is deciding what you're going to do with it. Choosing the right language learning tools, methods, and resources that will work for you is key. To help you with this, you need to know what kind of a language learner you are. Are you a visual, oral, verbal, or a kinesthetic learner? Not sure what kind of a learner you are? Just click on the link in the description below and you can take a short quiz to find out. Once you know your learner type, you can start to gather learning material to store on your phone, keep in your bag, or keep handy, so you'll always have access to the best resources that cater to your individual learning needs. Here are a few suggested resources for different learner types. If you're a visual learner, visual learners learn best when they have an image or a visual medium to trigger data in their mind. If this is you, you can use an audiobook and accompany it with an ebook version or supporting text covering the same material. When you work alongside a visual medium, you optimize your memorization and comprehension of the material. Other ways you can learn as a visual learner is through videos, media, and cultural immersion. Then we have oral learners. Now, oral learners are a talented breed. They have a unique ability to capture information by simply hearing it. So if while listening to a podcast you experience consistent progress by working through the exercises or material, then stick with that medium. There's no need to change or modify this type of learning if it already works for you. You can use things like audiobooks, podcasts, movies, and one-on-one lessons. Then we have verbal learners. Now, verbal learners learn best when putting pen to paper. Fingers to keyboard is great, but physically writing things down is shown to be more effective. One of the most effective ways for a verbal learner to learn a new language is to write down lesson material and then repeat it out loud. Use things like one-to-one lessons, which I love using italki for, and group lessons, or even having a conversation partner. Then we have kinesthetic learners. Now, they learn best by doing anything that incorporates hand-to-eye coordination. This is really going to benefit you. You can use things like electronic games, sign language, acting, or even writing. Flashcards and group lessons are great for kinesthetic learners as well. Another great option is to immerse yourself by traveling to a country that speaks your target language, and you can do what I call a language holiday. And you can check out my video about language holidays, which I've linked to in the description below. So there we have it. We've just covered my 3-step approach to learning languages like crazy, even if you have a crazy life. Let's do a quick recap of each step. Step 1 is focus only on active learning. Step 2, identify potential active learning dead time in your busy day. Where are there opportunities for you to inject some study time? Step 3, take the quiz and find out what kind of a language learner you are. And I've linked to this in the description below. Identify what language learner type you are so you can pick language learning tools, methods, and resources that will work best for you and your learning style. Now, here are some other key takeaways. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. Now, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Identify your dead time. Identify your learner type. Keep relevant language learning material on hand to be ready to use throughout your day. To learn a language with speed, don't divide your efforts. Multitasking does not work. So what was your favorite tip in this video? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're serious about improving your target language, download my free guide, 9 Reasons You're Not Fluent Yet and How to Fix It. Just click on the link in the description below and I'll send you your free guide. If you want to learn languages with my 80-20 method, you can check out my online language courses, which I've linked to below. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications so you get an alert when I post more videos like this one. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy language learning. Bye!